this. All right. And one
Fantastic.
more.
So, hello, and let's officially welcome everyone to Live with Marcy and Amy, the Heart Centered Woman. We are here today with an incredible theme. We'll be talking about healing the mother wound, honoring who you are, claiming your throne, stepping into your rightful position, clear and empowered. And before we start, I want everybody to know, personally, I've been a little weepy this morning. And so, if that's any indication, I know that we'll be going into some deep places, and that's, frankly, where Amy and I go all the time. And so, if you'd like to make certain that you have tissues nearby, I have loads, and maybe get yourself a drink before we, dive into um, the deep, deep wisdom that our wonderful guests bring with them today, as well as Amy and I. And with that, I think, maybe just get started with um, our introductions. Sound good, Aim?
Yes, first I want to say for those who are new to Live with Marcy and Amy, we do this every month. It's a free event every month that Marcy and I um, get together. A lot of people are coming in, so I'm just giving a little one, too. So the third Thursday of every month is when we have our show, and each month is a different theme. And so we are, as Marcy said, very excited and we want this to be very impactful for us women who really maybe we know we have the mother wound, or maybe we don't know we have the mother wound. Maybe we are, really living our life based on what we received as young ladies, young girls, and how can we shift into really as we said in our tagline, to really be empowered and to honor who we are. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. Is that correct?
Sure. Yep. Go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm Amy Shade. I am a women's life coach. I'm also the creator of the Radical Embodiment Method. I really support women in their life, in their business, and in their passions, and really to reconnecting with who they were born as. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And that, I'm really passionate about you really creating the life that you desire, and not only for yourself, right? This is what we're going to talk about also, not only for yourself, but for your partner, for your children, for your neighbor. We must understand as a collective how powerful we are, and that we get to take our own, life in our own hands and take responsibility of that, so that we could really achieve what we want. And our achievement helps the whole world, right? And we'll be talking about how the mother wound, healing the mother wound, really supports women in this endeavor. And so today we have Shelly Sharon, and Shelly started as a professional ballet dancer, somehow became a coffee shop owner, and then later sought out after social change strategists. But when she immersed herself into intense meditation practices, her appetite for healing and serving others opened up, which happens all the time. Shelley is now a trauma-trained Hakomi therapist and Buddhist psychology coach who's dedicated to helping women who want to unpack the way a challenging relationship with their mom has shaped their current challenges. Shelley's goal in working with her clients is to help them to be free of the emotional pain and live an unlimited life, both personally and professionally. She offers one-on-one sessions, courses, and yearly retreats, and is now working on her first book. Congratulations on that, Shelley. And welcome, Shelley.
Yeah. Shelley, you just want to say hi quickly?
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank
And
you
we're
for
so happy
introducing
to
me,
have
Amy.
you. Yeah. And so it's my honor, my privilege to introduce to you Marissa Sim. When Marissa started her career as a holistic health coach, Over 7 years, she noticed a recurring theme in her clients. They all had unresolved mother-daughter dynamics. This led her to deepen her training and become a trauma-informed coach and NLP practitioner trained in root cause therapy. Today, she helps women heal their mother wound and, excuse me, step into their authentic power. Marissa's success with helping her clients to heal is based on her really extensive training and, of course, studies, but also based on her use of tried and true processes that are rooted in her own lived experience and those she has helped to heal all around the world. So, welcome, Marissa.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks, Marcy and Amy, for having me.
And so I'm Marcy Newman, excuse me, known as the Heart Shift Coach. And I'm here. I always like to share that I am, and what I do is really the accumulation of all of my life experiences, all of my training. But so much is based on what I have experienced through my clients. And this is my 51st year in helping people to heal their hearts. And so, as you can well imagine, how I have done my work has really changed in so many ways because it shifts as I shift. My work is all heart-centered, and my focus now for the past 25 years has been on helping women to cultivate the courage that it takes to create a self-love lifestyle. And so, with that, there's an aspect that I have found to be just so important, and that is that we are in a constant state of expansion. And it's our consciousness that really is meant to expand so that we can expand our ability to extend more love into the world and create from that place those high frequencies. So I'm thrilled to be here with all of you, thrilled always to be here with Amy. And with that, I'd like to just start out our session with this quote. And this quote comes from Jasmine Lee Coral, and it's from her book, The Emotionally Absent Mother, A Guide to Self-Healing and Getting the Love You Missed. We, of course, are here talking about healing the mother wound. So here's what she has to say. Despite these many factors, the impact of mother is unparalleled. An attentive, capable, caring mother can help make up for many other handicaps, and the absence of such mothering is perhaps the greatest handicap of all. Because when mother is not doing her larger than life job as it needs to be done, children have significant deficits in their foundations. And so today we'll be hearing more about that. But of course, to keep in mind that we are here with the purpose and intention of healing those wounds, anything that we may have missed. So with that, Amy, you want to get us started?
Yes, I do. So, Shelley, as you know, I introduced you. You are a Hakomi therapist and trauma-trained Buddhist psychology coach. But from one dancer to another who understands the fine lines between health and dysfunction, the process of dancing and embodiment is a powerful healing tool. So, how did your mother wounds manifest as you were a dancer? And knowing what it takes to be dancing professionally, what did the healing process look like for you while you were dancing?
Beautiful question. Thank you. There are a couple of moments that come to mind. One is working with one of my main ballet teachers. So I was trained in classical ballet, and later on in the years, I had a petite kind of Austrian ballet teacher. She was incredible. She had perfection in her body that was really unparalleled. And I started working with her privately as I was preparing to move onwards to being a professional dancer. And in her home, she told me, I want you to cross through the room in like 3 steps. Like, I'm really bad at giving measures and tell you this like 3 by 3 or 300 by 300. I'm really bad at that. For me, it'll be the same. But let's say that that was a room where you would cross with at least 10 steps. Okay. And she said, I want you to cross the room with 3 steps. I adored her. I admired her, and I was bathed in her love and her appreciation of me. And I just tried to do that to my best of my ability because I felt there was a wind of support in my back that came from her request. And I realized that she was actually the first person and the first woman in my life that could really see me. And she told me, you're tall, you're long, you need to use what you have and who you are. And that was a big mirror for my mother wound. I followed my passion for dancing, but I never believed in myself. I always felt very inconfident. I never developed any friendships. I never allowed anybody to come close to me. I used to be known as a very harsh and cold woman. People were really afraid of me all throughout my childhood. And this instruction was like cracking through my heart from that woman that I admire so much, telling me just be who you are and use that. And yeah, and so another moment that happened was actually when I was a dancer, because of my history and my mother's history, being mentally ill, and there were a lot of mistakes done with psychiatrists and psychologists that basically screwed up our lives. I really didn't believe in any of these professions. Like the last thing on earth that I believed, or I would say that I would be with was a therapist. Like for me, it was a curse. Anybody who presented themselves to me as a social worker, psychiatrist, psychologist, I was like, oh, okay, that person. I was very prejudiced, but I met one day at a park after a ballet training with my best friend back then. And she and I were close because we had similar backgrounds. She had a bombastic mother wound. I had a bombastic mother wound. And we were just able to connect and relate to one another. And she came right after having a session with her psychologist, and she was radiating. And it really stopped me on my tracks. And she tore kind of like, a piece of a paper. She wrote down her name and she said, here. She wasn't pushing, she wasn't preaching. She just gave me the possibility, and seeing her and knowing her and trusting her was a huge opening for me. And so I made that call and it changed my life. Rivka, my first psychologist, was, my goodness, I'm going to be in tears just remembering her up to today. She was the first person in my life that didn't say to me, look how amazing you grew up in spite of everything that you went through. And I swore to myself, if she's going to say that when I come into the room, I'm just going to walk up and get out. And back then, I would do dramatic things like that and much more. I mean, that might not be too dramatic, but I was very kind of, protesting kind of person, and she didn't. So that was a life changing for me. So these are the couple of kind of things that come up to me when you bring up the embodiment of being a dancer and using the body and how the mother wound manifests. And it's just so interesting to reflect on that and see the mother wound can reflect in so many kind of thin veins of our everyday life. And we can pass by them if we don't have the right company to shine a light on what we're actually missing out because we're hiding from our mother wound or we're turning away from it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Marisa, I know that you grew up in Singapore in quite a conservative Chinese family. And in that culture, emotional abuse, emotional neglect, unavailable mothers is just like, okay. It's part of the culture. It's part of the way things are.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more a little bit about your story and how that shaped an early sense of self?
Yeah, sure, of course.
If you're okay with getting into more personal details.
I'm just gonna take a breath here before I begin. So I grew up in a very controlling family. So my parents are super conservative. They didn't allow us to do anything. My mom was like very critical as well. Um, and just never felt like I had the space to be myself. I remember once she told me when I was playing with my brothers and I was really creating a ruckus, and she says, you're so wild. And that was the first time I realized, oh, it's not okay. It's not okay for me to be loud. It's not okay for me to be physical with my brothers, not okay to be myself. And I remember then from that incident, like I felt like my confidence and my self-esteem started to shrink. And of course, there are many other incidents where my mother was comparing me and my brothers, oh, your brother is such a gifted child and he's doing so well in school. And I wasn't like the best student, to be honest. Like my head was always in the clouds. And so she's always comparing me to my brothers, and I've always felt like I was not good enough. Like no matter what I did, I could never measure up to um, my older brother. And it really um, damaged in some, it damaged who I was as a person. It made me become a really shy person. I didn't feel comfortable um, having an opinion or, sharing my ideas in school. I was just like this. I was the good girl, the quiet girl. Like whenever we had report cards, the teachers would be like, Marissa's such a quiet and friendly and helpful student. I was basically shaped into becoming compliant, obedient. And that didn't really, um, it didn't serve me long term because I felt like there was so much potential that I grieve actually sometimes, like the potential I could have had if I didn't have these thoughts or these beliefs, these limiting beliefs that I can only do this much, that will only shine this much. Yeah. And now obviously working my own mother wound, I'm just in a much different place. I'm more resourced. I'm out there. I'm saying yes to things that used to scare me. Like, for example, even appearing in this TV show with you guys today, it took a lot of healing to be able to show up today. Yeah. Um, yeah, and I feel like when as a young girl, if you never had the reassurance from your mother, and the support and acknowledgement, right? Then yeah, I feel like you don't have a strong sense of self. Yeah. So, Marcy, I know that you said you've been in, coaching now for, your 51st year of professionally helping others to heal their hearts. So I can imagine that you've seen a tremendous shift in how certain teams and approaches to healing have evolved. So, in your capacity as a spiritual counselor and intuitive coach, like what have you found to be the number one issue that people seem to suffer from? What do you see as the core issue and where does it come from?
It's a really good question because on any given day, I may answer that differently. But what's been coming up for me is that I think, the main thing that is such an issue for people is that they haven't stepped fully into really being able to parent themselves. And so there's this separation where they're still maintaining the persona of the child that was traumatized and allowing that energy to dictate how they are in the world. And honestly, if you had asked me this question last week, I would have answered this differently, but it's really sort of coming around and showing itself to me. And it again points to why it is so essential that we do our own work, because ultimately we are responsible. We are accountable for who we are in this world and how we are in this world and how we affect others. So, as we're seeing and hearing, as we share our stories, what happens is that we start to notice, like you did, Marissa, when you were beginning your practice, that there are these patterns that we see with everyone. And the pattern of, being this wounded child is prevalent everywhere. And clearly we can look anywhere in the world and see evidence of that, right? So how essential it is that we do our own work, because unless we are doing that, we literally are still that child, that wounded child. And so was our mother. And so was her mother and her mother. And so we're dealing with these intergenerational issues. And according to my work, we also carry them over from past lives, right? So there are issues from other incarnations. And so we have to start to look at this from a much more expansive view. And I'm just going to throw this out there, because you asked, like, what's at the core of it? And I have to say that, again, this is, how the world turns in Marcy's head is I almost feel like this goes back to the cosmic birthing, where at one point we were all one, right? Before we individuate as bodies, we are one in the essence of our being. And then, even though we choose to become individuated as a soul, we don't really know what that's all about. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves sort of, perpetuating this birthing process, right? And then we find ourselves in our mother's womb, and then she does it again, right? She sort of expels us out into the world. And so we have these traumatic experiences where we're just sort of left like, what just happened to me? And so I think honestly that this is maybe more essential to our remembering who we really are than we realize. And that's kind of crazy, isn't it? I mean, to think about that, that could be, that this could be somehow all divinely orchestrated.
Mm.
So I'm just going to throw that out there and, throw it into the hat and see what happens as our program unfolds. So with that, and thank you so much for the question. It was fantastic. And so, Amy, I'd like to come to you and ask you, why is empathy such a powerful part of healing the mother wound? How can shifting our perception of who our mother is, not just as mom, but as a woman with her own story, help us begin to release resentment and start healing?
Yes. Thank you, Marcy, for that question. Yeah. Empathy is very powerful. It's a very powerful tool to, really free ourselves from these stories and free ourselves from the mother wound. That being said, we also need to be in the position to be ready to allow empathy in. Okay. Because oftentimes, we're at this, I will never forgive her. I will never have that. You're in this mode of, this is it. This is the line. I'm not going to allow for anything other than this line. And empathy cannot live in that space, right? So when Marcy talks about, when we all talk about doing our own work and really being responsible for that, I do believe once you come to a certain place in your own healing around this, you can allow empathy in. Okay. So many of us might be, hell no, there's no empathy here. She did that, and that's what she did, and I will never forgive her. Right.
Yeah.
But empathy is not forgiveness either. So those are two separate things. Those are two separate things. And I had a client who said, I will never forgive my mother. I was like, okay, let's not go there, but let's try to find some empathy around it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Try to find some space around it, because if we do not create empathy around another woman's path, life, circumstances, especially for us who are, have mothers that were born in the 30s, or even before that, the 20s, right? Where they had such a difficult path to really be themselves, to go to school, to live out their dreams, right? And how much pain is involved with that, right? And a lot of our mothers, not mine in particular, but a lot of the mothers have mental illness. Think about mental illness, how difficult it is today in today's time. And think about back in the 30s, 20s, 50s, 60s. I mean, we get to find empathy around our mother's dysfunction and really relate it into their own lives and how they were oftentimes victimized. They were rejected. They had these huge wounds inside of them and no way to really express them, because even going to a therapist was like really bad, right? And so to find empathy around another person's life does not mean forgiveness, but it does allow insight into our adult mind, not our child's mind. That's something different. Our adult mind that can say, hey, how can I find some peace around this? How can I come to some kind of, surrender around this? Because until we get into these vibrational energies of empathy, of forgiveness, well, I'm not saying forgiveness, but empathy and like surrender and peace, and it's going to be a really tough ride for us. And our tough ride gets put on other people, right? So we're actually doing the same thing our mothers do, right? So we must be very aware that who we are and what we're putting out into the world in our families, with our children, and with our partners is very important. It's a very important mission for us to really heal these mother wounds, to heal ourselves.
I'm honestly, I'm so grateful for you bringing this up. Empathy is so huge. It's something we must, number one, we have to understand that we share these journeys, right? We're not separate. Like you said, we might find ourselves doing or being the same as what we experienced as children and now mothers. And so it's so important to be really aware of that. Thanks for that, Aim.
Mm-hmm. All right, Shelley, I'm coming to you. So, would you be comfortable sharing your background story and how you discovered the manifestations of those traumatic wounds from your early years? That would be very impactful.
Sorry, I need you to ask it again.
So, yeah, would you be comfortable sharing your background and story and how you discovered the manifestations of those traumatic wounds from your early years?
Yeah. How I discovered the manifestations. Yeah, this question brings me to a moment when I was 20. It was evening, midweek, and I came down the steps from where I lived back then. I lived with my mother, who was recently released from a mental hospitalization. And she offered me to come and live with her. I was just released from the army. I come from Israel, so I had my duty service. And I had a boyfriend from the same unit where I served who was still in the army. He was a real cutie. He had an amazing blue eyes and a gorgeous smile. And he was very creative and funny and smart. And he came from a very healthy family. So basically, loads of stuff, loads of things that I didn't have in my life. And when he called me to come down and meet him in his car, I've already felt like a premonition of something bad is happening. And indeed, when I got into his car and I looked into his eyes, I knew that he came to break up with me. We had an amazing relationship, and he taught me a lot. I loved him very deeply, and he loved me too, so much that he left his childhood sweetheart to be with me. Therefore, his mother really hated me. But I learned a long time ago to not consider much of a mother's approval. And when he told me that he wanted to break up with me, I wasn't just crying, I was wailing. I was weeping so deeply. And there was something in me at that moment that cracked, that told me that that cry did not belong to that particular moment. It came from such a deep place within me. I didn't have any language as inner child or mother wound or trauma, but there was something in my system that could recognize that particular distress where I felt so helpless, where abandonment felt like literally it's the end of the world, like everything was going dark. So that was just the beginning of something emerging. And it took me quite a long time until as I told the story earlier, there was a gap of another like 8 years until I was actually doing anything with those insights. Another thing that comes to mind is I suffered from horrific nightmares. I had a nightmare every night, every night. And just starting to talk to friends, and when I was doing my bachelor's degree, which was in special education, with specialty in mental health, I began to realize that that's actually not normal. So there are many, many moments like that, and they accumulate, they accumulate until there is a point where something wakes us up, and I'm kind of tying up to Marcia what you said earlier. I always related that something, again, when I later on had that language for that, to be my soul. And I can point to points in my life where I know that my consciousness was bright, light, that it left such a strong imprint on my consciousness to say, I'm coming back to a source here. And so with enough moments like that, there was eventually a beginning of a turning of things. Yeah. So Marisa, this this cry that I mentioned came from what I can name today as the inner child, or the young self. And I'm curious about how you, as a trauma-informed coach, can help someone to know if their inner child is carrying a wound, and how is that related to the mother wound? Like, how do we know what's the connection, or how can you help navigate that connection? We can't hear you, Marisa.
Sorry, thanks for the question, Shelley. So one of the clearest signs of maybe your inner child being wounded, it's really the reoccurring emotional triggers that you experience. So things like anger, shame, guilt, resentment. Also, it's when, your reaction feels bigger than the situation. And obviously that stems from certain beliefs about that were formed in early childhood. And we patterns like people pleasing, struggling to set boundaries, feeling like you're not good enough. These are kind of like the signs that that your inner child needs healing. And how it relates to the mother wound is when, if you don't have a secure attachment with your mother, right? So in my case, my mom was highly critical, and she was also unpredictable and explosive. So I never knew how to react around her. So I was walking on eggshells all the time. I tried to appease my mother. I became a people pleaser, right? And fast forward to, even in, as an adult, it shows up as you people pleasing to in your relationships, in your friendships, at work. You might be over giving, over extending yourself to, for you to feel external validation from others as well. And that's how, the mother wound shows up. And that's one of the clearest signs, is when you have those triggers, like emotional triggers, when your resentment is a good one, that I can relate a lot as a mother, as a partner, when I'm, having to do, taking on a lot of the caretaking role, right? That resentment shows up. And even though I'm a trauma-informed coach, like, it still shows up, right? I'm just more aware when it shows up. It doesn't really truly disappear. It's just that you're able to respond better, and not react as you start healing your mother wound. Yeah, so these are I would say, the earlier signs of that your inner child is wounded. And also, like, going back to Amy, when she said, like, her client who said that I will never forgive my mother, using like absolute terms like never, right? That's also another sign that her inner child needs healing, right? It's still the wounded child that is speaking, because she is not able to empathize and, you know, surrender and also accept where her mother, how her mother treated her. You know, we're not talking about forgiveness here, obviously, but, you know, having empathy really helps to makes it softer, right? Makes it softer around healing your mother wound and healing your relationship with your mother. Yeah. So Marcy,
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
so like how do you think like the mother wound manifests in real life? Like why is it so challenging for us to recognize it and why is it so important to do so?
So, number one, I think it's so challenging to recognize these symptoms because we're just accustomed to being that. It's part of our programming and part of our conditioning, regardless of the household that we grew up in. Let's face it, women, okay, are programmed and conditioned to play a certain role in society and in our relationships. So we're always acquiescing. We're always, the one that puts others first. And we're also taught to, rather than be emotional, right, to stifle the emotion. So whatever trauma that we have experienced, we just continue to just shove it down, bury it to the best of our ability. And so the symptoms that we have, like you were talking about your mother being so critical, overly critical, right? So that, of course, can then create this perfectionism within you, where you think on some level that that's a real benefit because, boy, you can make certain everything is just how it needs to be and can actually be the envy of people, right? Oh, she's got it all together. Give it to Marissa. She'll take care of every detail, all of that. So we get this reinforcement of the symptom sometime where the perfectionism is actually a form of judgment that we have on ourselves, and in fact reinforces that we're never enough to be loved just for who we are. So we're in this constant state, right, where it's like a whiplash, no matter which direction we look, we can't get out of it. And that's what happens so that we don't even see it. But eventually it creeps up, doesn't it? Eventually,
100%.
what happens is it is relentless in showing itself to us because it's so aberrant to our true nature. Growing up, I was the wild child. I grew up, in a German Lutheran family. And none of that made any sense to me. I was constantly being asked to leave my Sunday school class. I was the one always asking way too many questions. And so it meant that whatever I asked for, I was asking for too much. And so when I started to realize, and this was like, oh, oh my God, that's essentially what my husband says to me too, right? No matter what I ask for, you want a cup of tea, make it yourself. You're asking for too much. And I started to put two and two together where my true nature, especially from that wild child that just wanted to experience life, also just wanted to give all the love that was inside of me. And I found that I was constantly checking out, well, where is that love safe? And, my life was literally walking on eggshells. And so I just, was so blessed at one point to put these pieces together and to realize that the issue was that I was not living true to my nature, right? And being true to my nature not being true to my nature was creating all this stress and anxiety in my life. And of course, it creates that distrust in self. And what happens again, we just go around and around and around in circles. And we say, this all comes back to this childhood wound, or the mother wound. And if I can go back to that whole cosmic perspective again, it also means that if we are in that system where we're part of the oneness in the womb of the cosmos, we get expelled, right? We go into individualized experience. Then we're incarnated, right? And we go into the mother's womb, we're expelled again. I think what also happens is that we never quite connect to the Earth Mother. And so we don't really connect where we need to be connected as an Earthling. And that's with the heart of Gaia. And so we're sort of stuck in this string of energy, and we just keep going, getting twirled around and around and around. So thank you for that. And with that, Amy, I'd like to come to you. Tell me something. For women who feel overwhelmed by the idea of going back into childhood and the pain that may exist there, what would you say to help them take the first courageous step towards healing?
Yes, thank you for that. As a fellow wild child, I see you. I get you. Yeah. So I would love for everyone to shift this perspective that healing has to be painful or hard, right? I think that's just given to us through the patriarchy, which I'm going to just say right now. These conditions that we're told healing ourselves is going to suck. It's going to be hard. It's going to be something that's going to be too much. Again, the too much is it's going to be too much for you to handle. So oftentimes we turn our back on looking in the past. And interestingly enough, when we don't revisit our little girls, it's like Marissa said, we get defiant, we get angry. All of these things manifest in us because we as young girls aren't able to articulate our words very well. We're not able to manage our emotions very well. We're not able to look at the circumstance and give it empathy because we are at that young place, right? We don't have the knowledge, the life experience behind us that we do as an adult. So people, it feels like, the people who don't want to look back are the ones who are in so much pain. Like they're actually living pain, right? And the women who decide, like, I'm going to investigate this, I'm going to be curious about it, I'm going to, re-examine this and have help along the way. Like there's 4 of us on this panel right now, and there's thousands and millions of people out there who can help you through this. But we need to shift our thinking around this because I will personally tell you that my healing has only brought me health and joy and more understanding of self. And this is what our soul is asking for. Like Marcy said, our soul is asking for us to know ourselves in such a way that we have an intimate relationship with self. And that is what many women are missing. This intimate relationship of self and knowing ourselves in such a way that we, like Marissa said, we can call out when things are happening. And we don't have to get involved emotionally into that happening. Okay. We're able to say, oh, this is happening right now. I get it. Okay. Now what can I do to work on this process, right? So, and I would, I just want to encourage everyone that, life is a process. This is all about a process, and much of the process is going back into who our family circumstances, or what happened to us during childhood, what's happened to us during when we're teenagers all the way up to college, what's happening to us now. All of this is very important for us to examine. And I just want to encourage everyone to shift the mindset around this. Instead of like, it's hard, it's going to be painful, it's going to be too much, it's going to take too much time, I don't have time for that, right? Instead of that, you could say like, I'm curious why I keep getting pissed off in this certain situation. I'm curious why I'm always just overgiving. I'm curious as why I'm such a people pleaser, and I'm tired of it. There's my camera. Anyways, so I'm going to leave it with that, and then I'm going to fix my camera. Hold on. So again, I would definitely say that healing is much better than not healing, and looking back is very important. With that, Shelley, I'm going to ask, have you been able to forgive your mother or accept her and move on? Is it still possible for someone to heal from familiar habits and hurts even after they have already done so many years of therapy?
It's my favorite topic to talk about, and I will need at least a whole hour just to relate to that. But I will start with maybe contradicting something a little bit of what you said earlier. In that particular aspect, yes, the mother wound is situated in patriarchal society where women are programmed and trained to be many things that align with toxic masculinity ideas. Okay. But ideas exist as ideas, and I want to say that in particular, therapy is hard work when there are ideas that we should forgive, or that we should be compassionate, we should be empathic, that we should have distance and look at things, or that we even should have curiosity about what's happening inside ourselves. So I'm really talking here as a trauma-trained Hakomi therapist, where when I work with clients according to my training and my perceptions, I've got no agendas for my clients. I don't give an F whether they forgive or don't forgive, whether they accept or don't accept, whether they shift something or don't shift something. What I care about is, in a collaborative way, discovering what they care about. If there seems to be rage that's coming up to the surface, I would like to help them learn how to actually work with rage, how to express anger, how to process anger. I, at some point late in my 30s, already left Israel, which is my homeland. I was already living in Switzerland. I came back home to a home visit. And I was so still hooked up to the idea that I should forgive my mother. So I went to do a shamanic journey with somebody that was highly recommended to me. She was a very interesting woman, and we had a very interesting journey. And she kept on pecking me with ideas because I really wanted to take some photographs of our journey. And she kept on asking, why do you need to take photographs? But why do you need, she never was satisfied with my answers, but why? But why? And I started getting really pissed at her, until at the end, I figured out the right answer that was right for me. And then she stopped. I told her because it was important for me to share others with my point of view. It's like she helped me get to something that was important to me. Unfortunately, or maybe not, as karma played, she had an idea of how I would forgive my mother. So one of the things with my mother is that she always relied on me financially. And that was a huge burden for me, especially as a young, starting out in life woman. And that, in my view, shouldn't be the case. Then she had an idea. How about if I send my mother just a note of even just €5 or something in an envelope once a month? And I got so angry. And at that moment, I felt like I had the F enough of other people's ideas about whether I should forgive or accept or how it should be, because I heard that all throughout my childhood. But your mother is mentally ill. It's, you surely you can forgive her. She's doing her best for you. Surely you can accept her. If your mother was not forgiving, how are you supposed to learn about forgiveness? Yeah. If your mother was not generous, if your mother was not empathic, if your mother was not compassionate, if your mother didn't give you love in the way that you really needed it, yeah, how are you supposed to learn that? So, to come to the end of it, yes, I really accept my mother as she is, and I have forgiven her, but not because I wanted to, not because I was seeking forgiveness or seeking acceptance. I was actually, from that moment that I told the story, I was seeking to find contexts, friends, communities, and then later on therapists that will take me in as I am at any given moment. And eventually it opened up my heart, which is where we can find all these, how we call them in Buddhist psychology, immeasurable qualities: forgiveness, compassion, acceptance, generosity, creativity. We cannot find them as long as our heart contracted. And if our heart is contracted, then we're not going to go and say, oh, why is your heart contracted? And expect for it to open up. It just doesn't work like that. Yeah. But it's an interesting question, and it has definitely been a huge part of my journey. So I'm curious, Marissa, kind of talking about carrying deep unhealed mother wound, maybe for a long time, being kind to yourself, even when you know logically or understand that, what happened, or that's kind of like a good idea. Does someone need to mother themselves before they can begin to nurture themselves back to health or happiness? What is your experience with that as a person and as a trauma-informed coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of us think that being kind to ourselves should again be logical. Again, another idea that we should be whatever. But it's a lot deeper than that. And because our subconscious mind drives 95% of our behavior, our thoughts and habits, right? So I feel like it's not second nature to you because it wasn't shown to you, right? So, like as you said, Shelley, if it wasn't shown, like if forgiveness wasn't shown to you, like how do you forgive someone else? If speaking kindly to yourself was not shown to you, again, in my case, my mom was highly critical, and I had this like negative self-talk, right? It becomes embedded in our subconscious. And even though we know in some ways that it's logically we should be kinder and gentler to ourselves, it doesn't, it's not second nature. So, and to relate to your second question about mothering yourself before nurturing themselves, you don't have to learn how to mother yourself first, but I think you do need to nurture yourself. And nurturing yourself can look like resting when you need to, um, speaking kindly to yourself, validating to your emotions, doing small things that bring you comfort and honoring your needs. And through like over time, right, it becomes second nature to mother yourself, right? So that's when you start to protect, you start to provide emotional safety, you start setting healthy boundaries, you start becoming the inner mother that you never received. But it's through small nurturing acts that build over time, right? That in the end, you find that inner mother that is within us. And as Marcy said, it's like coming back to ourselves, our soul self, right? Like the stories that has been thrown at us from the moment we're born, which is returning back to love, returning back to kindness, gentleness, surrendering, acceptance, all that stuff, which already is within us. It's just that we have been clouded by our experiences. Yeah. Mm. So with that, I wanted to ask Marcy, can you share your experience with discovering your mother wound and share with us like how it all shifted and healed for you?
Ah, okay. First off, thanks so much, both Shelley and Marissa, for what you're sharing. Thank you for your courage in being here and sharing really from your hearts. So, for me, as I said, I grew up sort of, quite frankly, bewildered. I felt like I didn't belong in the family I was in. Like, how did I get there? Why was, again, everything I asked for too much? Why, when I was asking these questions that were so important to me, were they not important to others? And um, kind of like, why was I always getting in trouble? Like for just being me. But when you're stuck in it, what happens and what happened to me, I know, is that I took on this belief. I mean, there must be something wrong with me. Um, and why am I being punished like this? Who put me here? Why am I being punished? And what was so interesting for me was that I didn't, like I said, I sort of started to put two and two together as I expanded more into my relationships and was confronted with same repetitive patterns, which I did recognize, but to tell you the truth, I didn't have the wherewithal to do anything about it, except I did notice that when I was more aware of it, I could shift a little bit. And of course, that anger came out, right? I'd be fighting back. I'd be, fighting for every breath that I took, that kind of thing. But my background, part of my background is in past life work. And as a child, I had had a number of past life sort of spontaneous experiences. So I knew myself as a much more expansive version than what I appeared to be. But it was in going through one past life where, and it was at a time where I, was totally at odds with my mother. She just would not accept me for who I was under any circumstance. And I remembered even having a conversation with my father. Why is this? I'm so kind. I'm so nice. I just, and he said, Marcy, I think your mom is jealous of you. She was married at 18. She had her first child at 19. And she also had had a difficult childhood. I didn't know that. But also, when he said she's jealous of you, and I'm thinking to myself, why would she be jealous of me? And then he said, you're out in the world. You're out there and you have the opportunities to explore, to do, what you want to do. You're in nursing school. You're out in the world, and your mom never had those opportunities because she was married so young, and my dad then went off to war. So it was during a past life experience that I had where my mother came into the room and I asked her, what is it? Like what's with us? Why do you have such animosity towards me? And she said, because I don't know what to do with you. And what came forward, I don't know if you've ever had these experiences, but it comes forward in thought, right? And I started to get this explanation that she didn't feel safe in her own femininity. And I've always been a very feminine young girl, very feminine woman. She wasn't safe in her own femininity. And in that, because she couldn't relate to me in that way, my mother became the mother to my brothers. And she was there for my brothers in ways that were just fantastic. The message to me was that there was something wrong with me. Um, but in truth, it was just because she didn't know what to do with me. She had no let's face it, I mean, forget about training. She just had um, no place within herself to pull from in order to be able to deal with me. Again, I was a bit of a wild child. So, it was just this constant wondering, what was wrong with me. And it was in that moment I started to realize that I wasn't dealing with just myself and I wasn't dealing with just her. And so today, actually, I have a photo of my grandmother, my mother, and my aunt, who is like a mother figure. And I started to realize that we're never just dealing with what it appears to be. We have lifetimes upon lifetimes and generations upon generations that we are actually healing through, which is why this work is so important. So thank you for that. And with that, Ames, I'm coming over to you. Do you believe that healing the mother wound is also a revolutionary act in a patriarchal society? You had mentioned the patriarchal impact before. How does reclaiming your worth challenge generational and cultural programming?
Yes, I do believe that because we were told the feminine, we were told the very aspects of mother was never a good thing. It was a weakness. It's a weakness for your mother to be caring towards you, to be loving towards you. It was a weakness for your mother to have these feelings of um, emotions, any emotion, very bad. That's very bad. You do not want to do that. You don't want to be emotional. You don't want to care too much, you don't want to, none of this is allowed, right? And that's the patriarchal structure that these aspects of women are weak, are very weak. And so we have to, it is a revolutionary act for us to embody our feminine self, to embody and really embrace the mother inside of us, to open up to the mother above us, and to allow her love to enter into us unconditionally, and to receive and accept the love that the mother has to offer, and to honor who she is, who we are. And so when we decide that that's going to happen, that we are going to heal this wound, when we decide that this is our time, this is what we want to do, it is a revolutionary act, because when you walk into a space and you embody your life, everything changes when you come from the feminine, the mother. Because we are actually hooked up to our natural state. Okay, we are actually coming home to the qualities that naturally live inside us, that were squished and squashed and told we're weak. You're too much. You're too loud. You shouldn't be running. You should be in a dress looking a certain way, and put us in like button in this little image. We're trying to like, they're trying to shove us into this space, and we're in there and we're like, you know, in pain. And so I do believe that this is important work. I do believe that when we decide that, you know, we're going to make this something that we investigate, we're going to invest in this, we're going to really be curious about this, that our life changes once you become aware how this wound, this mother wound, has been really driving much of our life, right? And the patriarchy has us in this belief, you know, we have to do everything. We have to control everybody. We have to, what's that song? You know, put the frying pan with the eggs, you know, we can do everything, right? The 80s, we can work, we could raise our kids, we could have a husband, we could have our friends, we could have everything, right? That's all the patriarchal. When we as women, what do we really want? We want to live in love. We want to have, you know, our own self worth. We want to feel peace. We want to have healthy relationships. We want to be happy, right? And so once we decide that this is important, it goes straight up against the patriarchy, right? And that's revolutionary. And, you know, I love it. You know, I'm like a rebel. I'm like, let's do this, right? So once I became aware of this mother wound back years ago, like 2005, maybe, like something like that, I was like, this is very interesting. I really want to like clear this up, because I am like Marcy, wild in that manner. I'm like, I want to be out there. I want to show up. I want to feel my openness. I want to live grounded and open. I want to have fun. I want to laugh. I want to enjoy my life. I want to embrace this life and squish every little piece of water or whatever it's called out of it. Like, that's what I want to do. I'm creative. I go for my passions. This is the type of thing I want to do, right? And if I would have held on to that mother wound, the perfection would have killed that, right? The judgment of others would have killed that. The judgment of self would have killed everything. And I know, because until I cleared that mother wound, perfection took me out. Took me out of my dance career, took me out of taking chances, took me out of building businesses, right? And so I feel like we are all here, especially now, as a collective, to rise. And if we're going to rise, then we must look at this part of our life. And if we're going to look at this part of our life, I'm going to say that, you know, if we approach it in a way safely, we take our time with it, we let ourselves unfold, right? Unfold through the process, not push through, not try to fix in one time, but to unfold and allow, right? That's our nature. That's our nature, to be curious. That's our nature to to bring peace to a situation and allow it to unfold in a way that feels good for you, right? This is your life will change. Your life, the way the who you are today will be different from who you are. I'm going to say next year. I'm not going to say tomorrow. It's a process, you know, and it takes practice, like Marissa said. It's about practicing. It's not about being perfect. That's the patriarchy. Perfection is a patriarchy, right? The feminine aspect of life is practice, curiosity, trying it out. And so, yeah, I say we rise up. That's my mantra. Are you unmuting, Marcy? Yes, let's rise. You're muted. Are you unmuted?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was just going to say, speaking of rising up, I want to call everybody's attention to the workshop that Amy and I will be offering in 2 weeks. This, of course, is Healing the Mother Wound, and we are coming to you from clearly this heart-centered space where we want to support you in identifying, what the wounds are, how they're manifesting in your life, what they are preventing you from doing, like Amy was talking about. And, we can hear more of that. It literally, until healed, does stop us in our tracks. We are not allowing ourselves to be everything that we came here to be. But the other thing is, and I think you're getting the idea about why this is so important right now, is that the divine feminine is being called forward. We're here not only to heal ourselves so that we can be the greatest, most expansive expression of self, but also for the world. Back in 2009, the Dalai Lama said the Western woman is going to heal the world. Well, guess what? We can't heal what we haven't healed within ourselves. We can't offer that wisdom, that support to others if we haven't yet realigned with the divine feminine, the divine God or goddess, the mother God within us. And the other thing is, and this is, why it's so imperative, and again, it's now, is that we can't even access our divine feminine until we heal this, until we realign with accepting our divinity, which means we also have to be able to reposition ourselves from giving into receiving, because we are the great receivers of the universe, and it is then we who give birth to the new. So that's what we're being called for. That's why this is so important. And I want to just, tell you also that in this workshop, our intention is to support you in how you need to be processing, how you need that healing. In addition, you're going to get this incredible bundle of gifts that our experts, Marissa and Shelley, have offered today for you, as well as from Amy and I. You're going to receive my course, which is Forgive to Live. It's an online course about forgiveness, taking you through the steps, because like Shelley mentioned earlier, we're not taught how to forgive. How are you expected to do it? And so that course is filled with that guidance. We have Beyond the Mother Wound course. We have Mother Wound mini course and workbook. We have a replay from one of our past shows of Finding Your Purpose and Passion and Prosperity. We have a replay of a recent Healing Your Heart workshop, which was a game changer. I'm just
we had the guest with the bowls.
We had Dr. Carla Wade on that workshop. She was amazing. And we have the replay, Against All Odds. We have a live interactive workshop Again, something that comes from deep within our hearts and souls for each and every one of you. It's $47. It'll be the best $47 you ever spent. And that link is in the chat. We do hope that you'll join us.
Yep.
So with that, Ames, do you want to continue on and ask Shelley her next question?
Yeah, let's do it. So if someone is having trust issues, right? And even finds it difficult to work with a therapist, because many are don't want to do that. How do they deal with that? Is it possible to break down those barriers to healing?
Thank you, Amy. That's a really important question. And so I appreciate you asking it. I think the start to understand is that trust is not just one thing. Yeah, we say trust as if it's a thing, but it's not. It's multi-layered. It has many shades, and it keeps on revealing different aspects of where it finds us in our lives, just as trauma is not just one thing. So that could be already a step forward, because obviously if you had a mother that betrayed you or disappointed you to an extent that has left a significant impact on the rest of your life, you will have some form of trust issues. I always like to remind people that the mother wound is a relational wound. It's something that happens within the relationship, and within the relationship that is the most significant relationship in our lives. We have only one mother. I had a lot of mother-like figures in my life, and I was very blessed like that. But it does not replace the fact that we have only one mother. We have only one person that we are neurologically, biologically, and also spiritually. You both mentioned generational wounds and legacy, spiritual legacy and biological legacy. We come to this world wired to believe our mother. We come to this world wired to rely on her, to trust her, to come for her guidance and nourishment. And when that is not provided to a sufficient degree, and I kind of put a bracket on sufficient, because what I'm talking about, and this goes to the way that I define the mother wound. The mother wound has three characteristics or three aspects that are not fulfilled consistently, which are a sense of safety, guidance, and nourishment. When one of these are consistently being not sufficiently provided to a daughter, then that will continue to echo for the rest of our lives, because the way that we learn to adapt, the way that we compensate with different survival strategies will attach itself to the degree or the way that we have trust. So if you begin to ask yourself, what does it mean that I have trust issues? Yeah, if you begin to unpack it, if you begin to break it down, to understand in a very particular way, even to anecdotal and storylines ways, that could really help break the spell. What is also important to consider in that is support system. Research shows that what happens in therapy rooms accounts for only 30% of healing. So with all our glorious work here and all the other therapists, it's really important to remember that at the end of the day, there are so many conditions, so many circumstances, past life and current life, that affect our healing and how we heal and what we are able to embrace and receive. So support systems are really important. Friends, neighbors, cats, community, books, any kind of support networks that you can create will help break that barrier of trust. And yeah, these trust difficulties, these trust challenges will keep on coming up in the relationship with the therapist. And I want you to hear that. If a familiar trust challenge comes into the relationship with a therapist, that's good work. That means that the healing is taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the trust would manifest within the relationship with the therapist, then you're not trusting enough the therapist to bring it forth. And it's not done rationally. It's not within our control. It happens from our depth of our psyche and our inner world. I work with a lot of women who find it difficult to trust. And I particularly remember now a woman that came to me and she said, I have to have a conversation with you before I commit to anything, because she was horrifically abused by her stepfather and his cult, and her mother pretended like she didn't know anything and that nothing happened. Even when she actually came to tell her, she didn't need to do any guessworks. And I'm sharing here an example of something that maybe would stand on the more extreme of the spectrum of mother wound, just to illustrate that today she's really rocking it. She's a performer. She has a loving relationship. She's actually gone into spiritual counseling and doing past life work and mediumship. She's an amazing woman. But it started with a big chasm in her trust realm. So yes, it is possible to break the barrier. And if you feel like you're in a place where your therapist is judging you, not accepting you, bringing any ideas and agendas like we spoke about earlier, then it's just not your place. But the right person is out there. So keep on looking. Yeah, these are really big and beautiful questions. So I've got another big question now for you, Marissa. How does healing look like? Yeah, how someone's life change when their mother wound is healed? Can you kind of
So
drop it in a
off,
nutshell?
okay, I'll do my best. So off the top of my head, you become less reactive, right, to emotional triggers. You're more grounded, you have more self-trust, um, and you have improved relationships. You start to set your own boundaries, you protect, um, you also express yourself, and not being afraid of being rejected, right? You start to thrive and do things that you never thought were possible. Um, and these are just like small examples of how, what to experience when you start healing. And there's so many different aspects, but I just want to focus maybe on relationships to just deep dive a little bit. Like as Shelley said, having trust again in yourself, in others. And trust is such a big topic. It's so heavy sometimes, right? Not being able to receive, to rest in someone else's presence, and also trusting your own intuition. That's something that I realized that, and also in my experience from my own clients, is that your intuition gets actually magnified, right? Because you're back to who you are now. There is no second guessing. There is like, if something doesn't sit right with you, it's immediate. It's gut feeling. You're like, ugh, no, I don't want to do this. Ugh, this does not work, gel with me. Um, and also being able to have difficult conversations without, reacting, right? Things like, hey, I seen you done this, and it makes me uncomfortable. And you be able to express yourself in that way without afraid of somebody rejecting you for saying something difficult. So it works both ways. You being comfortable saying difficult things, and also you receiving like difficult things as well. Yeah, so I think, and obviously there's so many things I can go into, but I think the relationship is the easiest, I think, reflection of how healing your mother wound can help you um yeah, improve your life. Yeah. And especially when Shelley said, because it's a relational wound, right? Like the first thing that is healing is your relationships with your partner, your children, parenting. Parenting also improves because, when you're, again, and I say this from my experience, when, you know, as a parent, I am definitely a lot calmer, grounded, resourced. I do not have those, I mean, not that I do not have, but when I have those moments when I'm agitated or triggered by my children, I know that like the self-awareness comes first, and I know not to react immediately and to first take myself out of the situation, resource myself, and come back to it. But if you haven't healed your mother wound, it's, every little thing that your kid does is going to trigger you again and again and again until you hold that mirror in front of your face and look at yourself and say, oh, hey, I think I need to do some work here. So, Marcy, um, is healing of the heart ever really possible? And does it require a lifetime when it happens in layers, or can it happen in a flash?
Mm. First off, I want to thank you for really making it so clear that um, we're literally flipping a lens, right, on how we see the entire world when we do this healing. But we also then start to recognize the impact that it had on us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's in that moment of awareness that we actually participate in this mutual healing, right?
Yes.
Because the healing is always based on an exchange of energy. And so we're never just healing for ourselves. And by the way, from my perspective, healing is really realigning with our true self. It's
Yes.
realigning with our own divinity. And so it's not that something's wrong with us.
Mm.
It's that we have gone askew, where, like a boat that is not level with the dock and you're trying to jump on or off and it can't happen and go, you end up in the drink. So it's so powerful to recognize that it can happen in an instant. I think the instant that my mother said to me in that regression, I didn't know what to do with you. I had no scope of experience what to do with you. I couldn't handle you. And it was easier for me to be your brother's mother. And so that's where I put myself, because that's essentially saying that's where she felt safe, right? I also realized in that moment, and I didn't go into detail, that my mother had been traumatized as a woman, as a girl. So that trauma was why she felt unsafe. In that instant, I had a very deep healing. And, Shelley, you talked about the heart and forgiveness. I could feel that separation dissolve. I suddenly felt like I was connecting with my mother for the first time because I saw her. And I think we started that in the very beginning with something Amy had shared. I saw her as a woman, but I also saw her as that young girl and as a child, and that she was carrying her own trauma. And so I think the answer to that question is that we have options. right? We have options based on how I believe, how do we feel safe in approaching this? And that needs to be what forecasts our approach because we are going into territory. Again, number one, it could be something we've never even realized, right? It could be something so basic and yet something so deep. I know from my mother, because of my work, I've seen many lifetimes where we exchanged positions. And I'm telling you now, it wasn't pretty. Wasn't pretty. Okay. I was as much of a tormentor as she. And so we were healing um, this exchange. And my mother actually passed away very young. She was only 43 years old. And so she wasn't there when I got married, when I became a mother, and now I'm a grandmother, right? So all of this time without her to reflect back to me, whether, um, what I'm doing, how I am in these relationships has been really tough. However, the relationship that I've now created with her, I can honestly say that she shows up when I need her. And she shows up in a way that I never would have expected, but I had to be able to get to the point where I was willing to receive her in that way. I was willing to listen and I was willing to receive the love that is now being extended to me, even through that veil. So, this realignment that we talk about is this opportunity for us to really step into our wholeness and to see with such clarity that we are meant to be empowered by it. I think you were talking before about like what happens when we heal. All of a sudden, we're in a brand new world. We're meant to be empowered by our healing. And yes, it can be scary, but it can also happen just like that if you're willing. If you're willing to just be present in it and allow yourself to get what you need. And for me, this has been huge. I knew I was healing when I allowed myself to reach for what I needed. When I found my therapist, mentor, she specialized with, women in transition. I struggled so with reaching for her because I felt such shame and guilt that I needed that support. And I have become so free because of it. And this is what I want for me. It's what I want for you. And it's what we all deserve because we're here to be the fullest expression of the divine feminine possible. Yeah, this is how we're meant to live. So, with that, Ames, I'd like to come to you and ask you if I can find it. Hold on. I would like to ask you. Sorry. Um, let's see. Amy, I can't find you here. Hold on. Totally lost it. Okay, Aim, what's the next question? You go ahead, ask yourself.
Do you find that many reject their own feminine power, things like softness, rest, sensuality, or creativity because of what they learned from their mothers? And how has that shown up in your own journey of healing and reclaiming your feminine self? Yes. So I'm going to bring out the scenario that I grew up in, right? So we can kind of see how this all, what my little Amy self was looking up at my two parents, at my mother and my father, right? My mother was this stay-at-home mom, typical 50s housewife, didn't make the money, was supposed to, stay home with the children. And then my father, who is in total power, money wise, has all the say so about what happens within the family. Okay. They are polar opposites. My father is passive aggressive. He's quiet. He's, my mother is like a caged animal trying to get out. She's over emotional. She's angry. She's depressed. She checks out. She often sleeps through our life, right? So I've got these, I'm looking up, right? I'm like, okay, I got one person over here who's out of control, who is my mother, who is the person who's supposed to teach me about how to be a woman, teach me how to regulate, understand my emotions. That's why she's there, because I'm a woman. She's teaching me these important lessons. And then I have my father here, who is quiet and in power. He has all the power, which makes my mom a caged animal, over emotional. I'm looking up, I'm like, oh, who am I? Who am I going to gravitate towards, right? Some gravitate towards the mother to try to fix and cuddle and hold and take care of. I did not do that. I said, oh, hell no to that. I'm going towards my dad. This patriarchal, quiet, controlling person, right? And so that's how I was. Passive aggressive, perfectionist, atheist, very you don't want to get an argument with me because I will take you down. Okay. I'm quick. I'm like, and unforgiving about that. Actually have no emotion about hurting someone else. I mean, right? This is who I was, right? And all of those things, the perfection, everything, all this stuff was squashing my career, squashing my relationships, And so I did not feel safe because my mother was not safe. She was like this out of control person, and very, I would not say she wasn't abusive or anything like that. But when I looked at her, I didn't want anything to do with my mother. I didn't feel safe with my emotions with her because, I mean, God forbid she can't find her keys, right? If she can't find her keys, my whole world explodes, right? Because her anger overtakes everything, right? And this is just the accumulation of her helplessness, her inability to find her own feminine self, and and her mother, again, this is generational. Her mother was not there for her because her father had died and her mother had to work, right? Her mother wasn't there emotionally for her, and her mother was in a lot of grief as she was a young child. And, and of course, she gets involved with another man who leaves, so she's a single mom herself, and then she marries an emotional, unavailable guy. So it's like we all grew up without a father from her generation of not having a father. This is how it all kind of cycles and plays out. And so, I wanted to share that story because sometimes, um, it's good to see how things are playing out in front of the young child, and how we are looking up at our parents who are supposed to keep us safe, and like Shelley says, supposed to keep us safe and give us nourishment and guidance, aren't, right? And then the choices we're making because we're looking up at these people and going like, we're just trying to learn, right?
Yeah.
We're just trying to figure it out ourselves. We don't know anything. We're just looking up at these people who are supposed to keep us safe, but we don't feel safe. We don't feel nourished. We don't feel supported. We don't feel seen. We feel, more like we're never enough and we have to constantly do something different than we naturally are doing as young kids, right? And this is where the constraints come in, and all of a sudden we're put in these boxes, and we're who we are is being like trained and so this is I do believe part of the process is to really understand what happened inside your household and how your young girl was looking up and perceiving these things, right? Because once we have that understanding, and once I got that understanding why I felt so disconnected from my mother, I was able to start connecting with my mother, right? Understanding her situation, instead of turning my back on her and not wanting anything to do with that part of her and who she was, because it was out of control in my young mind. And I didn't want to be out of control. I wanted to be in control, right? So I went over to the other side. So I hope that was helpful in people's story and journey and what it might look like and how important it is for us to really, look back on that. Take an examination of what the hell actually happened, right? Like what actually happened, right? With an adult mind. With an adult mind. It's important. Our adult mind is very powerful in helping us look in through the child's eyes, which might be more vulnerable and scary. And so I think we're at 10:46. What do we got?
Yeah. So do we want to go into last questions for Shelley and Marissa quickly?
Yeah.
I want to make certain that they get to share everything that they want. And then each of them can tell our audience about their free gifts and how to, of course, connect with them. How's that?
Sounds
okay?
Perfect to me.
All right.
So Shelley, I'm going to ask you your last question, which is, do you ever feel guilty when you talk about your mother? Is it hard to do when at the end of the day, she did the best that she could? And what would you recommend to someone who has difficulty in accepting that?
I love this question, Amy, because so many of my clients have that question. Personally, today I don't feel guilty talking about my mother, but I was at the place where all my clients start or come to me. And in fact, it started with shame. I felt great shame about my home environment. We lived in poverty. My mother suffered from different mental illnesses. One of them was chronic depression. So I always lived in a neglected house. I suffered from a lot of neglect, both emotional and physical. I felt a lot of shame. And so talking about my mother did not hit guilt until I actually felt a little bit less shame. And the guilt started coming up as, maybe she did her best, or maybe it's actually her story and not mine. Who am I to talk about her life? My clients feel guilty mainly because of this very common social saying, she did her best. Yes, everybody is doing their best. Everybody is doing their best. Sometimes that best is very, very limited. It lives in a very narrow slit of conditions and generational trauma. That is just that best is just really not enough. And I feel that even just saying that and repeating that is reinforcing everything that you spoke about, Emmy. The patriarchy, the men in control, even when we say that, we're saying that we actually don't have the right to reevaluate the relationship with our mother, that very intimate relationship, and how we personally were impacted by it. That's what we're saying, and this is where guilt comes from. I heard from Janina Fisher, who is my trauma trainer, saying something that she heard from somebody else, and she couldn't remember his name, who says, guilt shows up when we feel like we've broken a rule. So I ask my client, what kind of rule are you breaking now when guilt comes up? And that's extremely revealing. Those rules are something that we build as a compensation mechanism, because it's just not natural for us to feel unsafe with our mother. It's not natural for us to critical her. It's not natural for us to feel like she's just not equipped to guide us or to nourish us, to give us nourishment, meaning experiences that are enriching our whole body, heart, soul experience. It's just not natural. So we kind of unconsciously cultivate some kind of a grow to believe in some kind of a rule. For example, my mother is ill, so I'm not supposed to criticize her, or you're not supposed to talk back to your parents, or I'm a bad girl, I'm not trusted, I'm not working hard enough. Hey, let's talk about that. I haven't tried hard enough, I'm not working hard enough. So that's these are the kind of rules that I broke down one by one, and that's what I'm actually helping my clients do in order to go into beyond the mother wound, which I'm now coming to also talk a little bit about the gift that I'm offering you. All these limiting beliefs that we cultivate are in none of our control. They're not in our rational, conscious mind. And if they were, we would not keep on holding them. We would not keep on repeating things that are just not serving us, not in our favor, and not what we desire for ourselves or for our children. So in this beyond the mother wound, beyond the limiting beliefs of the mother wound, I walk you through a process of understanding what beliefs are to start with. Like, what are they are really? It's a word that we're familiar with, but how a belief comes into reality and comes to be a part of our personality and a part of our everyday life. And then what mother wound beliefs specifically are there that stand in your way to healing or to whatever ambitions you have for yourself, whatever kind of aspirations you have for yourself right now, and how you could cultivate a process that will help you to move from limiting beliefs to empowering beliefs. Because we, as human beings, our construct is that we cannot live without beliefs, but we can have empowering beliefs, we can have useful beliefs, we can have beneficial beliefs. So I'm helping you shift from this to that in that gift.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Shelley, for that. And if you would ask Marissa her last question, and Marissa, you just take us home, girlfriend.
Yeah, so Marissa, this is really relevant. Is it possible for someone to start healing without confronting their mother or speaking directly to her? Love that question. You're
Yeah,
muted,
I'm on mute.
Marissa. Yeah.
Again. Yeah, I love that question. And the short answer is yes. Because the healing is within you, right? It's the nurturance, it's the guidance, it's the compassion that you need to give to yourself. And thing is, like, maybe until you are in a place where you are grounded and resourced, right? Speaking to your mother might be re-triggering. it might bring up, all the old stuff again and then repeating the story again. And that's not what you really want, right? It's what you really want is to move through the story, not going back again and talking about stuff and trying to make clarity. Because you need to understand that your mom, as we all, we've heard today, our mothers come with their own trauma, their own past life trauma as well. And we're just here to do the work for ourselves. And through the work of ourselves, we also actually heal, the generations before, right? Because we're not passing down that wound to the next generation or yeah. So yes, you can heal without confronting or talking to your mom. And it really starts with you showing up for yourself, right? And making sure that you do those nurturing acts uh, of self-kindness, of compassion, of nourishing things that really fill you. And from your place of resource and happiness, it's when you actually heal the generations um, before you and the generations after you. And I like to talk quickly about my Mother Wound mini course gift. And in that gift, I will be covering the symptoms of the mother wound, just to give you a little bit more clarity around your symptoms, as well as I will talk about, your subconscious mind and how it plays in your life and why it's not logical for you to feel self-compassionate or kind to yourself. So you need to actually, as Shelley also said, you need to have new empowering beliefs about yourself before you can actually start doing these things and start being kind to yourself. And as in it, there's this whole bit about self-compassion. And within the course, there's also a self-compassion meditation for you to listen to. Yeah, so that's all in my mini course, Mother Wound mini course.
Thank you so much, really, both Shelley and Marissa, for everything that you've brought here today. Again, I want to invite everyone to join us on Tuesday. That would be the 27th of May, where we will have our live workshop on actually how to heal this mother wound. We'll be taking you through rituals, through processing, and of course, we're there to listen to your story and to hold space for you and your healing, regardless of, where you are in it. All are invited to attend and join us. So with that, of course, I want to thank you, Amy. Always, you're just the most amazing light and such a strong support in my life and in creating this show. And thank you all. Thank you for everyone in our audience who have given us your time, your energy, your focus, and of course, your willingness to really tackle this together. We're here together, and together we can heal. We can realign with our true selves. And that, of course, is the ultimate goal, isn't it? So, with that, again, I just want to say thank you. And if anybody has any last remarks or anything that they'd like to share, please go right ahead.
I really want to say thank you for creating a community that can speak in such a free and safe way about the mother wound. This is really rare. I cherish your invitation and what you've created here today.
Thank you,
Thank
Shelley.
you, Shelley.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you to Marcy and Amy for inviting me and Shelley onto the show. We're really excited to be here today and to share our knowledge and our stories and experience. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. And by the way, everyone who's here in our audience, please put in the chat some pearl that you resonated with, something that you're leaving with, some gratitude and thank you and appreciation for our speakers is always appreciated by all of us. We really enjoy getting your feedback. So please, yeah, share something in the chat, even if it's just a heart. We're happy to receive it, as always, because your heart is so important to us.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
also put,
Jane?
so I also put the, become a VIP, which includes the workshop. So again, we get these wonderful experts courses. And again, I think I'm so happy we decided to do the show also because it's so important for us as women to really come together, not feel shame, not feel guilt, not feel any of the things, and to have the freedom to really, share our stories and express how important it is that we really look at our mother wounds and to really heal them so we ourselves as a collective can really change the world.
Fantastic. And let yourself become everything that you've come here to be. Yep. So much love to you all. Thank you. And thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Shelley. We'll be in touch and we look forward to the next time that we're all together. Bye-bye now. Yes, the wild women. The wild women. That's us.
Bye
It's so
bye.
true. Thank you for joining us.